Well, you found us again. Small biz, big ideas. And I tell you what, folks,
That wasn't delivered with much verve, dude. Come on, do it again.
small biz, big ideas.
There it is, baby.
And, I'm fortunate because I get to do this thing with the best head of hair in small business, uh,
We've got to
the
stop having
Derador.
bald guys on here. I feel so bad.
Well, you should feel bad because you don't have all of this. It's
But you
it's
don't have the problems I've got, okay? You
first
don't,
world
you
problems,
know?
my friend. First world problems.
You don't have to shave from your shoulders to your eyebrows. So,
Everyone, we have Delegate Eric Phillips, um, uh, a true rising star in Richmond. And we are extremely excited to have him. And
Southside's in the house, boys and girls.
absolutely. And most importantly, small businessman who has a great story. And he really embodies some of the stories we have tried to capture on here. Folks who have gone out, hustled, worked hard, and made it happen. And now, not only is he a great businessman, but he's doing a great job representing his district. So, Delegate, thank you very much for joining us.
thank you for the invitation. And
We appreciate it.
I really enjoy, getting to meet you guys again. I know when Governor Spanberg was taking over there as our new governor, and you guys were on our transition team for economic development. Really enjoyed our conversations during that time and talking about some of the things we could do to strengthen business and the regulatory environment and some legislation, possibly that is pro business. So glad to be with you again.
I will say this. We had a lot of meetings over that period. The meeting we had with you all was direct, it was to the point, and it was well organized. And I was quite taken with the fact that you all did not come to play that day. It was
Mhm.
here's what we got, here's what we don't got, here's what we need, how are we going to get it? And I mean, I was really impressed with the focus of the meeting.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's a fast-moving environment here. We're blessed right now with a lot of economic opportunity in this region, and one of the things that and y'all tell me to hush or redirect me ever how you want to here, but one of the things that
Never would.
I will say, in having another event earlier today is, infrastructure is our next real problem here, and you'd love to see development follow infrastructure. But frankly, we're going to have to see develop the infrastructure follow development because of the number of jobs. We're talking thousands of jobs, billions of investment in our area. And you got on one side of our largest business park in Virginia, it's a two-lane road coming out of there. Now, the state helped us on the other side build a small road back to a four-lane bypass. But it even was a consideration on some of the folks that wanted to come into that park. Is it too many jobs for us to be able to get these folks in and out of there? So, good economic development, frankly, creates a whole new, while it's great, it's wonderful, and it's good for your area, it creates a whole new set of challenges that you have to learn how to fix and deal with. So, there's a lot going on. So I guess to your point, we don't have time to play. We got to get some stuff done.
Tell me this, what kind of business are you in? And tell me your seed story. How did you start? Where were you and where are you now?
So I have a couple businesses, but my main business I'm in the logistics, and so I own a lot of zip codes in the FedEx system. So I have 100. I've checked this morning before I went to the other event. I have 103 employees that are out delivering packages all over Central, South Side, and Southwest Virginia every day. We've been the humanitarians of the year in the FedEx system nationwide. We've been entrepreneur of the year in the FedEx system. I also have a commercial real estate holding company, and I build houses. I got four under construction right now. That's kind of a hobby, and I told someone today I've got to find a better hobby because it's a tough environment right now to
Yes, you
build.
do.
It's expensive to build right now, but there's not a whole lot of people in our area that are spec building. I jokingly tell everyone all the time, they say, Eric, will you build me a house? I say, absolutely not. I'm not going to build one for my wife. I sure as heck ain't going to build one for yours because we're not changing the paint 12 times and the carpet 4 times. I just tell them, if you like what I'm building when I'm done, you can buy it. And we've been real successful with that because there's not a lot of speculative builders around anymore post COVID. A lot of the guys that had the capital to be able to do that and take the risk to do that kind of got out. They were in their 70s and they got some of that money, that came out during COVID. And when it was all said and done, they're just like, you know what, I'm good. I'm going to retire. And that again is another issue, that is a leg of the economic stool for us is housing. We just, we don't have, say, the Richmond area or Northern Virginia or even Charlottesville. We don't have Ryan Homes and Pulte Homes and some of the big tract builders in our area yet. And yet at the same time, we have thousands of jobs we're getting ready to fill. And frankly, all those jobs can't be filled by people who already live here. So we've got to figure that issue out. And I can tell you we're hard at work. We have some regional housing summits here in Danville in this area now, and bringing in developers to let them see the economic picture of what's going on to see if we can address that problem. Because what we don't want to do is have all the economic success here, but not get the full benefit of the folks living in Virginia, because we're right on the Carolina line. And so, we want to make sure we have housing because we want them going to our schools. We want them serving on our PTA boards. We want them eating in our restaurants here in Virginia and in these communities, so we get the most out of these employment opportunities.
How did you get into the FedEx logistics game?
Yeah, that was my
That's not
question.
that's not for the faint of heart.
So, and I don't care if my wife watches this. So I jokingly tell everyone I'm always looking at businesses for sale, homes for sale, cars for sale, and good-looking women. You can edit that out. And
No, we can't.
I don't care if you do. And that, jokingly. But so, I kept seeing these opportunities in FedEx, and I thought that's weird. I thought FedEx was all corporate owned, like UPS or something like that. And I ended up meeting a guy that I became friends with, and he was part of the FedEx system. So he kind of explained to me how it worked. And I always thought, that sounds like a pretty good business model. E-commerce is growing. And I got in at the perfect time. I got in right before COVID. Of course, I didn't know COVID was coming, but my business tripled during COVID because, suddenly grandma figured out that she could order toilet paper from Walmart and have it delivered to her house. And she was afraid to go out. And so that business, e-commerce business, really grew even further in the logistics business. The home delivery business, what we call last mile delivery, really grew during that time. So I was fortunate in my timing. But the area which I live in came up for sale. And so I thought, well, man, if I'm ever going to do this, sounds like a good time to do it. At the time, I had a business where we were renovating and building as subcontractors hotels all over the United States. And I've been doing that for about 10 years. And I enjoyed it. And it was great to go a lot of places. But I'll be honest with you, I was getting tired. It gets old after a little while living out of a suitcase. I mean, I can remember the last couple of months before we finished some of our contracts. I would start off Monday morning in South Philly. I would be in another part of New Jersey by that 2 days later, and I would finish in Culpeper, Virginia, and then I would come home Friday night and leave again Sunday evening. And I did that for 2 years because I had 3 hotels under construction in those areas, right? And I had a bunch on the West Coast that I never even went to because I had project managers and stuff like that overseeing it. We'd have 10 to 12 jobs going nationwide at any given time. We did things like the Hilton Hawaiian Village. We had a contract with the United States Navy where we did Navy lodges. I don't even know every naval base had a hotel, but apparently they do if they're near an ocean or something like that. And most of them are because it's the Navy. So that was kind of where I was but I was burnt out on it. So I was kind of looking for another opportunity. And that's when those came around. And then when COVID hit, a lot of the areas where we did business, I had jobs going in San Jose, California, in Boston, Massachusetts. A lot of those northern states completely shut down. So as we finished those contracts, that kind of helped me wean my way out of that business because for the next couple of years, a lot of the things I had, if I was going to go do work, I had to send my people and pay them for 2 weeks to sit there and do nothing in quarantine before they could actually build. Well, that's a lot of indirect labor that over time you can't eat when you're flying people back and forth cross country. So as we finished our last contracts, I got into FedEx and we kind of just transitioned. Now we started pretty small. It was a little rough at first. because it just wasn't enough to sustain everything we had going on. But once COVID hit again, we tripled in size, and then because we have been successful and done well in the system, if they had other contracts come open or something like that, in several cases they gave me routes and I didn't have to buy into the system. And over time, I have shed some because I got so large, it was too much. We were also doing what they call line haul, which is regional, trucking. You see these FedEx doubles trailers running up and down the highway. So I didn't do that long. I did that for about 2 years because I'll run the little trucks all day. My big trucks ran all night and they all run 7 days a week. And I was like, this is too much. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And even though I have a management team, things like that, there's a lot of liability in trucking. So if something bad enough happened when you got 100 and some people on the road, they're going to call me. So you might get a call at 3 a.m. from your big trucks and get another call at 7 a.m. from your small trucks. And you're thinking, man, there's got to be a little time in here to sleep. So that's how I kind of got into that. Is it kind of happened as I wanted to transition out of being gone all the time, and the ones closest to where I live came available, and so I seized that opportunity and been doing it now for about 8 years.
Okay.
What got you into politics?
So I've always been interested in politics for some reason. Even in school, I always loved political science and history. Those were always my favorite subjects. And so, just always kind of a passion of mine, just, kind of always enjoyed listening to some of the talk shows and different things like that. Back in the good old days, what was it, Crossfire, or, all the different ones over the years. And so I always kind of liked that debate. And then I became a county chair of the party. And through that, I got a whole lot more involved. Um, and I thought, maybe I want to do this. And then I'm off the road, so I'm home now, right? And so I have the ability to do it. If I hadn't changed, kind of my career path there, then I probably never would have been able to do it. It came available, and I thought, I think I'm the best person for it, is particularly out of who was running, in my own opinion, right? Thankfully, the voters agreed with me, and I've been through one reelection, so going into my fourth year. This coming session will be my fourth session. And I'll tell you, I've really enjoyed it. It's a lot of work. I know we say we're part-time in Virginia, but particularly when you're in an area that's still a small rural community, but it's doing big things. It takes a lot of help. And it takes a lot of times, a lot of help from the state and even legislation. My mentor and former colleague, Danny Marshall, did a great job for Danville. I mean, I gave him a shout out today. One of the things in Virginia, like with our large business parks, things like that, it's so competitive. South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, we're in direct competition with these folks for car plants and for data centers and for all the different economic things that are happening. And so one of the things in Virginia we hamstrung ourselves with is, and we still don't put enough money into site development for VEDP. We need to put more money into that, and we also need to market Virginia with a lot more money through VEDP, and we don't. And we've talked
What is
about
the budget for marketing for Virginia for VEDP right now?
how much. I'm sorry.
What is the budget for marketing for VEDP right now? Do you
So
have that?
I don't know that I'm going to venture a guess. So you can, I want to say it's like 20, $30 million. I mean, that's a lot of money, but it's also not a lot of money when we have a $71.5 billion budget. And so, you guys know this. Sometimes you have to invest in economic development to see the return. And you have a lot of these southern states are investing at a much, much higher level than we are. The other thing they're doing is they're also putting a lot more money into site ready development. In other words, let's just say fictitiously, Hyundai wants to come and put 10,000 jobs and they want to build a huge plant and build cars, and they're looking in the southeast and mid-Atlantic area. If you don't have a lot that's already has infrastructure, water, sewer, power, and if it's not already graded, you might as well forget it, right? You might have 2,000 acres for them, but they want something that is site ready to build on the moment they sign, because speed to market plays a big factor in these things. So in Virginia, we could do a lot of things, but you couldn't have certain pieces of the infrastructure, particularly electricity. you had to already have a deal to do it. And Virginia is the Dillon rule state, and a lot of people like that. A lot of
I
people
was getting
don't.
ready to ask that question. So where does the Dillon rule play into what you're talking about?
So we had to allow it. And so Delegate Marshall carried a bill to allow AEP, Dominion, the co-ops, whoever, to come in and go ahead and put substations into those properties, which happened at Berry Hill. The Berry Hill mega site's the largest park in Virginia. It's almost 4,000 acres. And it was $30 million at that time, which has been a decade or more ago, for AEP to come in and put a substation there to service those businesses. But if we didn't have that, it just makes us uncompetitive. And so that has been replicated now from that one bill. It shows you the power of being a good legislator, really. It's one bill that has resulted in hundreds of billions of dollars of investment in the Commonwealth. Because if that had not been done, we're not competitive. Because I can go right across the border, imaginary line, to North Carolina, and they had all that. I go to South Carolina, and they had all that. And so it sounds like a simple thing, but when you don't have it, it's not simple. And so I think that's the excitement about why do you want to be a politician? Because hopefully you can do some good things. Hopefully you can benefit your community. Hopefully you can look back and when you get old and you're riding down the road and you can look over and see a business at Berry Hill, if I'm Danny Marshall, and be like, I didn't do everything right in life, but I did cool things.
So, you bring up car plants. I'm old. I was on the road in '88 with Senator Gore when he was running for president, and I remember that's when the news broke that BMW was going to build a plant in Greer, South Carolina. And there were T-shirts. I had it for years until it fell to pieces. BMW, Bubba makes wheels, Greer, South Carolina. And then the Mercedes plant hit. I don't think we played for any of those options. I don't think we put in any of those options. But the question for this show, the question for this podcast is when you have a BMW, a Mercedes, a Hyundai in your uh, uh, model there that you just put forward, talk about the downstream effects to small businesses when something like that hits a 4,000 square foot, 4,000, I'm sorry, a real estate guy, a 4,000 acre spot. When you've got somebody taking down, say, 500 acres for a campus, how does that affect small businesses that may be there, may need to be recruited to be there, or may need to be bolstered
Sure.
to remain effective?
Well, I think particularly, using cars as an example, there are a ton of ancillary small businesses that follow because, most car manufacturers are buying parts and pieces from 50 suppliers. They're not they're assembling, right? They're putting it all together.
Mhm.
And so most of the time, that's why some of these things are super popular. That's why you see so many states trying to get certain types of industry, particularly, like I say, like a car plant or something. I mean, in recent years, you've had Toyota in Alabama. To your point, you had, and BMW, actually, Virginia did try to get in the running for that for a lot of reasons. We didn't get it, but I've been by that plant right there on the interstate heading to Greenville.
Yeah, sure, I have as well.
Yeah, but so I think that's the reason. It's you get that plant and you get those jobs, which is great, but you're going to get 20 other small business opportunities in and around that, either through current suppliers or through innovation in that community where people start doing stuff. Plus, again, it's good for all the other existing businesses. I mean, again, if you bring in 1,000 jobs and even two, three, 400 people have to move there because you don't have the population in some of these small areas to fill them all. Again, those same people are now buying gas at the gas station in that community. They're eating in those restaurants. They're buying flowers on Valentine's Day from those florists. So that kind of growth is just good overall for the economy when you talk about something at that size and scale. And again, usually car factories and things like that are large and they're big jobs and they're usually good paying jobs. That's one thing I can tell you we've done here in Southern Virginia, and I give credit to a lot of people not named Eric Phillips because they've been doing it for years, is they have made it a point to only bring in jobs that are well above our current median income. We're not trying to, trade a $40,000 a year job for a $40,000 a year job. Most of the jobs we have coming in now are 75, 80, 85, $90,000 a year on average in these factories and in these things. So it raises everyone's standard of living. It also, when you have other large employers in town, makes them have to look at how they pay those people, if they want to keep their employees. And so, I think that's the other thing we've done well. It's not just about getting a job; it's about getting a job that somebody can raise a family on, afford housing in this expensive environment, and send their kids to college. And I think, that used to be the way it was here through all the factories that were here. But when they eroded and went away,
Sure.
that became something that was difficult. So I think that's the other thing that's good. We're not trying to keep what we have. We're trying to grow people's wages. And so, if you can come right out of high school and go to some of these places for 25, $30 an hour to start, that's pretty good in this part of the world. That's really good in this part of the world.
So just talking about what exists versus what might exist.
Mhm.
I've got some experience at VIR way, way, way back.
Yeah.
And I noted that Connie is a shrewd businesswoman, the owner of
She's great.
VIR. Um, and I've had many conversations with her over the years. She's got a small industrial park right there, basically.
Yeah.
As you all have grown, has she flourished? Has she filled out? And I'm talking about, I was down there 12 years ago, 10 years ago now. How is, talk about VIR. And for those of you who are listening or watching who don't know, VIR is probably one of the preeminent racing road courses in the country. A lot of testing goes on there. There is an IMSA race there once a year that draws a big crowd. But more and more, it's a place where amateur drivers come, or teams from GM and Porsche or whatever company come to test vehicles, normally performance vehicles. Um, but I noticed when I went in and started talking to her that that her play wasn't just the race course, right? It was not just the track, it was this infrastructure of building upon building upon building. How is that going now? And she had a vision way before anybody else did about building her own. How's that going? And did the road ever get built that was going to bring traffic more directly into VIR? I know that had been discussed.
So she's doing great. Actually, they have the big race coming up the weekend of the 22nd of this month.
Mhm.
And so I was there. We had a tobacco commission meeting there not too long ago. I served on that, and then I went to the IMSA race last year. So they have, if they had them 12 years ago, they have expanded. They have housing. They have like townhomes and things around the track. They just built a bunch of new ones, and had already sold out at that time. I think they've been having record attendance at their races. And to your point, there are like kind of car research. I know and I wish I could remember more details, but I do know that there's some sort of innovative tire business there, because what they do is they take those racing tires and they do something, how they recycle them into something else, but it's located in that park. What a better place to get a bunch of old used up race tires than at a racetrack,
Right,
right?
right,
And the Tobacco Commission actually funded part of that. We gave them some money. It's a new process to deal with tires, which frankly, tires are hard to dispose of because they don't really ever deteriorate completely, and you don't want to burn them because they're toxic. And so this guy has a process that he's come up with to do something like that. So to your point, that's very innovative, and that's at VR. It wouldn't exist without it. But most of the buildings when I was there all had an operating business. I don't know what they all do,
good,
but yeah, that is very innovative to have a racetrack with an industrial park.
right.
Think there's a lot of technology and a lot of testing, like you said, and a lot of industry around racing and around automotive performance. So yeah, very cool. Still doing well. I'm not familiar with the road from 12 years ago, I'll be honest with you. Because it's kind of in the country, as you well know, to get
Yeah,
into
oh
there.
yeah.
But again, record attendance when I talk to her. I hear from Connie every now and again. She's wanting me to stay on the city of Danville about her water. So that's the issue we're trying to help her with now. But I can tell you, she's always around and about advocating for her
Are they
business.
running that whole thing off a well or a few wells?
Not anymore. They do have some city infrastructure now, so that's a good thing.
Good.
But yeah, so I wish I had more information on that. That guy came to our last tobacco commission actually and thanked us and gave us an update on his business about what he was doing. But it was super innovative, super cool, and yeah, a lot of fun. So a
So
delegate
as
Marshall,
you look at
yeah,
the
a Four
region, now
State
we've
racer, you
talked
should
about
have been
something
there.
that exists. We've spoken about something that exists. What do you see that region not becoming, but what is the specialty of Southside as far as you all are out there recruiting larger businesses. We know this, right? But what is the outlook for the small business person who wants to plug in?
Yeah, I think right now we are seeing both. We have some of the largest economic announcements in the Commonwealth. Microporous is about 1,700 jobs, $2.5 billion investment, which is big for this part of the world. And then we have the Stack Infrastructure deal, which is 2,500 jobs on $100 billion in investment. And so already, and then of course, prior to that, Danville had a casino. People can like them, not like them, but it has been an economic driver for that area. And most of that money, frankly, does not come locally. It comes from the state of North Carolina. Most of the people that are coming in there have come from Raleigh, from Durham, from Chapel Hill, because currently, North Carolina, unless you're on an Indian reservation, they don't have any casinos. So they have one in Western North Carolina. That's it. So you've seen a lot of small businesses really thrive, particularly in those areas. You see a ton of new hotels being built, a ton of new restaurants opening, a vibrant downtown now that you didn't used to see. Actually, I'll be honest with you, Danville used to be run down, and I didn't really enjoy going downtown Danville to do anything. Now I love it. They've taken all the old tobacco warehouses, and these are all small business people, local people, and have renovated them into really cool wedding spaces. They've renovated them into breweries, into restaurants, into some of the coolest housing around. The old Dan River Mill building, which is a massive building.
Yeah.
So they call it the White Mill. Man, you guys have to check it out. So, it's an 80-20 project, like most adaptive reuse projects here in the state of Virginia are, Commonwealth of Virginia are. And so it's 20% commercial and then 80% residential. And so you're slap dab right on the river. I mean, you look out of your window on the one side and you're looking at the water. They have a white water training facility on the front of it because it had a place for the water to go around it. And it's also something they're going to have where they sell tickets and you can do it recreationally. And that is a massive building. It just won all the architectural awards and all that stuff for the state of Virginia. It was in Virginia Business Magazine recently, some things like that. So, and you're seeing inside of that, with that renovated space, you're seeing small business pop up right and left, right? Because you're having more people move back into this area. This is one of the few places in Virginia, like Northern Virginia currently is losing population. Hampton Roads is losing population. Southern Virginia is actually gaining population. City of Martinsville, City of Danville, this area, Henry County, Martinsville. Now, for a lot of reasons, and most of it is due to the revitalization that's happened. So I think a lot of your existing businesses that have been here for years. I mean, if you're a sign maker, there's a lot of new businesses going up. It's been really good for you because you're selling signs, right? If you're a fencing guy, every time they put up a hotel, they put a fence around it. I mean, so all these things, whether you're in construction trades, whatever, a lot of it. That's one of the things. Again, we've been very selective and protective over is we're not going to tell anybody they can't get the best deal and make the best business decision for them. But I can tell you, we put our construction companies and our people front and center in front of them. We put our banks in front of them for capital. I can tell you, I've had those conversations myself because we want, as a community, to have a stake in this success and for as much of that positive influence to stay within our people in our community.
Jim, do you want to ask the finance question
Yeah.
tailing off of the bank
Yep.
statement there?
Yep. So, as all these projects are moving through and you've been in a number of businesses, you have a number of businesses, the challenge that capital poses, even for the most well-heeled business. Right now, what do you see as being the biggest challenges in capital for small business? And then there's a follow-up question I'm going to have after you answer that one.
Man, that's a tough question, because it's kind of unique to every situation. You know what I'm saying? So even folks that I know that, as you say, are well capitalized, private equity folks that I know, things like that. I mean, money's expensive right now for one thing. And so
But is
commercial,
it?
well, traditionally,
How
historically, it
old are
might
you, sir?
do what?
How old are you?
Well, I'm 50.
Okay, so I mean, six and a half, seven and a half.
It's historically, is it terrible? No, but
Right.
it's more than it has been in the past. That's just like,
Not
I read a
arguing for the sake of argument, but every
yeah.
time I hear somebody say money's expensive, I think to myself, but is it? Because
It's not. You're right. Historically, it's not.
and that's
But I
just, I
think
didn't want to check you up on that. I just,
no, no. I
okay.
think nearer term, though, people think it is, right? I think a lot of people, your housing market, I read an article today. It said housing nationwide sales are down 1.7% because of high interest rates, right? That's literally the lead in the
I
article.
would make the argument it's because of low interest rates. Nobody wants to
I
sell their
didn't write the
house.
article.
All right. But go ahead. Let's get on to Jim's question about capitalization. I'm
Sure.
sorry.
So, I mean, I think, look, a lot, again, it's hard to answer that question because like a lot as economic development authority director, I do that as well. Every one of these deals is looking at a capital stack, right? Everybody comes in. Two questions that I see in all these big economic deals. One, do you have enough power for us? Right? Do you have enough electricity? And what's our ramp to get to where we need if you don't? Two, let's look at our capital stack. Like a lot of these adaptive reuse projects, frankly, don't pencil. So a lot of times, like we've got one going on here with our mutual friend Eric Payne here in the city of Martinsville, where we've taken an old furniture factory and we're having it redeveloped. It doesn't pencil though financially with a capital stack unless there's some government involvement. So, we're getting grant money. We got $1 million from the Tobacco Commission. We're getting money from DHCD. We're getting money from Virginia Housing. And then when you go to a bank and you've already got two, three, $4 million in your stack that you don't have to either repay or it's forgivable upon completion, then you've got equity, right? And it's a whole lot easier to walk in then and get capitalized for some of these smaller developers because again, we like to keep as much as we can here, right? But sometimes you don't have folks either one that want to do it or are the size to do some of these projects, but we do the same for them. Um, and there's also again, I'm going around here because it's hard to answer that. For me, it's hard to answer that question because every deal is just so different, and it depends on what you're doing, right? I mean, it depends on where you're trying to start or what you're trying to do. But in the case of housing, which is what I'm really focused on, right where I live, and as chairman of the Economic Development Authority, is we're having to help these folks. So I'm introducing them to banks. We got a hotel development coming here, and again, we're going to have a meeting with the Virginia Small Business Finance Authority in my office in Richmond, and talk to those folks. They're really good at if folks are not using that. Let me help you here. That's probably the most slept on agency in Richmond. And basically, they are a bank, and their job is to loan money, and they want to loan it. And so they've got great terms. They have a faster turnaround on money than any bank will ever have, if it depending on your project. Um, they will even put money up for you to borrow. I mean, they have all kinds of innovative programs, right? I mean, a ton. So anybody out there who's either looking to get into small business and needs financing, or anybody who is in a small business and looking to expand or whatever, even if you are able to get bank financing, I would really suggest anybody talk to their economic development folks locally, or reach out directly to Virginia Small Business Finance Authority. I had honestly, I had a meeting when I first got to Richmond. I thought I was doing something. I was going to introduce all these people to all the folks there over some of these departments and some of these things that I thought would be beneficial. And they were. So I had one group from one city and one county, and they're like, "Oh, this is great." And I have the guy from Pennsylvania County said, "I hate you, man." I'm like, "What are you talking about? What do you mean you hate me?" He's like, "You're giving away the best kept secret in Richmond." He's like, "I use them all the time. I'm afraid now he's going to have his capital tied up." But they do gap financing. They do short term. I mean, every tool's in the tool bag. And so I think that is a great place for people to reach out to, and to do some things with. And Yeah, I think that's a tool we can give. And again, they do a lot of good work in conjunctions with typical financial capital. They'll do things to help strengthen your case when you do go to a bank if you need additional funds, because obviously they have some limits and some things like that. But I think that's a great tool if you guys haven't talked much about that.
Yep.
He
What?
might be the director of that might be a good podcast member to come on here and tell you about all his programs. And I'm not kidding.
Yep. So if in your role in Commonwealth government, if you had control for a good span of time,
King for a
what
day.
king for a day, what would you want to do differently um, on the capital side? And then I would also say, just in general, what would you want to do differently for small business? Now, I know that's a pretty broad
Ooh,
question, right?
man.
Um, because we may would have to regulate you a little bit. You may get a little carried away. But if you could pick two or three things, let's starting with capital and then working more broadly, what would you want to what about the environment would you want to change for small business?
Well, we're king for a day over the whole. We're going to just go broader than the Commonwealth. We'll just make it the country because some of the questions you guys sent me, which I know we haven't got to any, which is fine. But one of them, and I'll get to the capital part by starting here. And one of the questions was, give us one word. And I was going to be positive today. I really was going to be positive here. And it was like, give us one word to describe the state of small business in America right now. And I was going to say resilient, right? And I would say resilient because I think small business owners have been hit with inflation. I'm going to disagree with Charlie and say higher interest rates, higher energy costs for sure,
Sure.
uh,
Absolutely.
workforce shortages when you need trained folks, higher insurance costs. Man, I can tell you, being in a trucking business, my insurance is out of control, and we're a very safe company. No matter what you do, it goes up, right? My workers' comp is very high, and we don't have
What's
any incidents.
causing the insurance crisis? Because I call it a crisis in this country. Delegate, what caused this insurance crisis? Is it greed?
I don't. That's a good question because I got to tell you, I think that I sometimes view things differently than my colleagues because I have to deal with them in real time as a businessman. There's other folks that I serve with that are, but a lot of them are lawyers or work for nonprofits, things like that. But when you're having to do this on a day-to-day basis, you're like, my God, what is going on? It just goes up, goes up, goes up, right? And I get that if you have a lot of accidents or if you have a high accident rate or something like that with your employees as far as but when nothing changes
Right.
and you don't have any issues, it you can count on. And then, with your workers' comp, as I'm sure you know as an employer, you get audited every year, and somehow at the end of the year, I always owe them more money, even though I pay my premiums all year, and I don't have any accidents because they base it on the number of employees you have, which is insane. It should be based on how many accidents you have, I would think, right? But they recover liability that you never had a need for. Right? But the state mandates that we have, of course, so you don't have a choice. That's the other thing. Anything that's regulated, particularly like that, you have to buy it. It's a monopoly on the workers' comp piece. You have
Right, but
no
it's
choice
it's
because
but it's
they
but
make us
it,
buy it. I can't get a business license without it. I can't do a government contract without it. I can't really do much of anything without it and do it legally. And so, but then you have no control over the price, even when you're safe.
but what about the State Corporation Commission's ability to do something about these hikes?
So, those are some conversations I've had in Virginia. We do have an insurance commissioner as well.
Right, we do.
And so, we have reached out. And so I will tell you this, and I had a gentleman tell me this because he said, Eric, there's never a shortage of problems. And we have a lot, and some of them are big and complex. So some of these things take a while to inform yourself on to find out what's broken in the system. And like you think it's in one place and it's actually a whole other department and what's driving it and what can we do as legislators to affect it. That's one of the things with the State Corporation Commission. It's kind of like the Supreme Court of Virginia. They're not really supposed to be political. And so it's harder for us to influence that. Ultimately, we do appoint like this, even the Supreme Court. Same with the State Corporation Commission, but it's like every 7 years. So it's hard for us unless we legislate over top of them, which kind of defeats the point of having them,
Right.
to affect a lot of that. It's just like electrical rates, right? Most people don't understand that AEP and Dominion have to go before the State Corporation Commission and make a rate case. They have to say, here's what we think we should charge. Do you agree? And here's all of the evidence that says this is why we should charge this. And then the State Corporation Commission can say, absolutely, you can charge that, or no, you guys are crazy, you're being greedy. It's kind of the same thing with some of the things like insurance. I'm assuming, all right, because I need to find out more. It's a complex. How are they making rate cases? Like, where are they coming up with these charges? How are they? I mean, what's their margin? I can tell you, the power companies have to tell what their profit margins are. They have to disclose all of that. Anything that's highly regulated like that. But I can tell you, it's out of control. And I think you made a good point there by saying it is a crisis, because for a small business, man, it's tough anyway,
Yeah.
particularly when you're
Yeah.
starting out. And then you just have these massive, cumbersome insurance costs that you don't have a choice but to have and to pay, or you can't be in business. That's I don't even know. It's tough on us if we've been in business for a long time, but I don't even know, if as a state or some kind of thing, because I don't, could you, on the first couple of years of a business or something, make it a little easier on them or something, because it's a massive cost. I spend six figures just in vehicle insurance every year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's money.
But you've got that many trucks on the road.
Yeah. But the thing is, and I don't bore you with my real business details here, but when I have FedEx packages on it, those packages are actually indemnified, and that truck it's under lease to FedEx the moment it has a package on it until it doesn't. So the only time my truck is really on my insurance is when they drive
When
to
it's
work,
empty?
drive home. So during the day, it's under FedEx's liability. And guess what happens? FedEx then indemnifies against me. And so I usually have to pay ever how many $1,000s to what they don't pay. So it's a mess. It's a mess. But to pay as much as I do to only see them transport to and from work is insane. And workers' comp, though, I think is a bigger issue, because you can't have any business without it. And I'll be honest with you, see a lot of people, especially in construction, working without it. And if you don't have a contractor on site making sure people have it, and someone gets hurt, then they end up liable. But it's so expensive for guys that got one or two or three painters or whatever. A lot of them don't carry it because they just can't. It's so cost prohibitive.
Jim, are we short on time?
Nope, we've still got some time.
Okay, Eric, I want to ask you a question we ask everybody here.
Okay.
If you had to tell a new person who was thinking about starting Eric's Baked Goods or HVAC Will Keep You Cool by Eric, what is the one thing you would tell that person to always keep focused on?
Man, for me, I'll just tell you a little, maybe my story a little bit, maybe that'll make sense. But, you know, everybody has a different path, right? I dropped out of college and went to work for other folks. And I quickly decided, everybody's talking about the stock market, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I invest in that. And, you're kind of betting on other companies to perform. I would always tell them, bet on yourself, because there's nobody that's going to work harder for Eric Phillips than Eric Phillips.
Amen.
And there's nobody that's going to work harder for my kids and my grandkids and try to leave behind some sort of legacy or something that helps them along in their life, whether it's just assets, whether it's money, or whether it's a business. That I know I left something behind for the next generation. So I would say bet on yourself. Even if you don't have it all figured out. Man, I have done some things, particularly in the hotel construction world. When I started off, Martinsville, Henry County is a furniture thing. So I started off with my dad, who had retired from being a plant manager at a furniture factory, doing furniture repair work. And the first job we had was doing Caesar's Palace and in Las Vegas. And we were scabs because it was a union shop. They weren't happy we were there, but the furniture was under warranty. So it started off with FF&E. Right. So then the next thing you know, I'm installing FF&E and I'm in new hotels, and I am liquidating FF&E out of old hotels and installing it. never dreamed in my life I would be involved in doing that. I didn't really have a clue on the best way to do it, but I figured it out. The next thing you know, you're on the job and they say, "Hey, man, you guys do a great job. Do you paint?" I'd always say, "Yeah, we paint," knowing I didn't have a clue, but I knew I could find someone who did. And then they, "Hey, man, can y'all put down carpet?" Yeah, you know. And I knew enough about most things to be dangerous, or I had someone I knew or that I could call, or a flooring guy back home I was buddies with, and we would find local folks and I subcontracted out, and I knew how to manage if I didn't know how to do anything else. Until the next thing we know, we're doing hotels, right? And that came from a place of just taking a few risks and believing in myself that, hey, if Jim can do it, Eric can do it. Now you can't do that everything. I can't go be a doctor or an engineer or an architect without the requisite education and things like that. But hustle doesn't take an education, and work ethic doesn't take an education.
There's your
Uh,
quote for the. There's your quote for the. There's your quote
right?
for the
I mean, it
podcast.
just doesn't.
Hustle
Like
doesn't take an education.
that's right. Like my dad, looking at his life, he's in his late 80s now, not that great of health. But I've never and never maybe I hope a lot of people think this about someone in their life, but I've never seen anybody work like that guy. But he always did it for somebody else. And he gave his life to the company store, as the old country song says.
Sure.
And so I saw that and I said, I'm gonna work as hard as that man because I admire it, but I'm gonna do it for me and I'm gonna do it for my family. And we're gonna own the store. And so that's kind of how it came about. And I'm gonna tell you, it was a journey. It's difficult. I think anybody that has any success, particularly if it's first generation, some people are blessed enough to be born into a family business that's already big and successful. And God bless them. I'm happy for them. I don't. But your first generation of success, particularly, is difficult. And I can remember one week in the hotel business, I had jobs going everywhere, and you would think we were on top of the world. But when you got Hilton and Marriott, they pay you when they feel like it. Your contract may say 30 days, but they're like, dude, what do you? We
Net
got
30, net 30 turns into what?
I
When?
said,
Yeah.
I said, yeah, 90 days, $220. So I'm paying out all this money all across the country. And I mean, I'm just thinking, oh my God, like I'm about to be in some trouble here. And this was fairly early on into this. We had grown so rapidly. And I remember being so proud. I bought my wife a little BMW, and she liked it and I liked her having it, whatever. And I came home one day and I said, I think I'm gonna have to sell your car. She said, "What?" I said, "I don't know how else we're going to make our payroll this week." And I did. I took her car, and for 4 or 5 months, she wasn't happy with me. But I got my folks paid. I got them back on the job the next week, had enough to pay them for a couple more weeks. And then the check started coming in the mail. And then that taught me a financial lesson. At that time, I was trying to do everything off a cash basis. I didn't want to have any debt. I didn't want to, but there's good debt in business, and there is a way to use financial tools in a smart way. So after that, I said, I'm going to open up some lines of credit just to carry my cash flow because I couldn't depend on those folks to pay me by my contract. And I never went through that again. But all of us, I think, who are small business owners have stories like that. You see someone and you think, man, they got it made. Sit down and talk to them sometime
Yep.
and
Yep.
see what it took
Yep.
to get where they are. It really,
Yep.
if anything plucks my nerves, is for someone to think, man, must be nice. Must be nice. I tell you what, you come travel the country for 10 years and stay away from your family, sell your wife's car, put every piece of money you got at risk and be up all night wondering, is a check going to show up in the mail tomorrow so I can pay my bills? And then call me and tell me how nice it is. It's nice once you finally get a little success. But the road there, I wouldn't trade anything for it because I tell you, I wake up every day like I'm still going to lose everything I've got because that's how I lived for 10 years until we
How
finally
many
got it.
times have we heard this, Jim?
Well,
There it is.
that has been
There it is.
that has been a
The
consistent
last line.
thing. Yep, that has been a consistent theme with a lot of the small business owners we've had on here. And I grew up in a small business household, and I tell you what, my parents went into the ground and they literally worked themselves into the ground. But to your point, they went into the ground for themselves, though. They didn't
That's
go in
right.
the ground for somebody else, right? And if my dad could come up out that ground and say listen, I'm sure he'd sing Frank Sinatra that he did it his way.
That's right.
And but folks don't understand sleepless nights. They don't understand those hard conversations when you sitting around the table and everybody's like, hey, this ain't going the way we thought it was going to go, right? Because folks always plan for success, but quite frankly, they don't know how to plan for failure. And failure doesn't have to be failure forever. And it's not even really failure. It's rough times, right? That you gotta know how to bridge those rough times. And man, listen, but we could have church in here right now. That's all I'm saying.
I would tell anybody thinking about getting into small business, don't do it if you're not prepared to walk a lonely, difficult road to success. Because, you know, the more successful I became, frankly, the less people I knew to call to ask for help. Right? I mean, seriously. I mean, when you're first getting in, you knew a couple guys that, had five, six employees. Like, hey, man, how do you do this? Who do you use for payroll? Who do you use for accounting? Who do you use for this? Who do you use for that? When you get 100 employees or you get whatever, man, that's a different dynamic. I can't use Susie's CPA service anymore, right? And so um, there's different levels, but it never stops. It gets a little more fun at times, but it also gets a little more stressful at times. Now, if I screw up, it just costs me a lot more money. You're able to weather a little more. So I wouldn't trade it for anything. Uh, so yeah, I've enjoyed the journey. It has not always been easy. It's been a lot of difficult things, but man, it sure makes you more appreciative for what you do have and the success you have. And I tell you another thing I think is important. Man, it makes me feel good when I walk out in the parking lot and see one of my employees has got a new car, or they're getting married and they've just bought a house. I think that's another thing we in government in particular need to look at is employers are not the enemy. I'm an employer. I want good things for my people. I want to pay them the absolute most that I can and still be profitable. I want them to have a good life and a good quality of life, just like I want my family to, right? So, I think that's one thing we always have to keep in mind is, it's a lot of people demonize, business and demonize corporations, especially big corporations. But they do provide a lot for a lot of families, and they do provide jobs and an income and the ability for people to go to college. It doesn't mean that some of them are not greedy and that some of them don't need regulatory stuff. I'm not saying that, but in general, I think we need to make sure we keep as business friendly environment as we can to create opportunity for people. And hopefully some of those big corporations will create small business opportunities right here in Southside for people to come alongside of some of these big investments and create their own story and their own business. So yeah, I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade that entrepreneurial journey for anything. And I'm still an entrepreneur, man. I'm thinking what I'm gonna do next now. It's just in you, you. I get bored easy, and so I keep my main thing. My main thing I try to for the most part because it pays for everything else. But man, I've got 10 things I'd like to do right now. So
So as we wrap up, where can folks find out more information about you as a delegate and find more information about your business?
sure. So Eric Phillips for VA.com is my House of Delegates. And of course at the House of Delegates we all have our own page as well. And tells some about us and all the different things we serve on and things like that. And as far as my businesses, frankly, I don't have anything. The good news is about being in the FedEx system, I don't have to sell anything. And is the packages show up? I just got to get them off a truck and get them delivered. So that's one of the nice things about that. But lastly, I'll just say this about my businesses. One of the things I'm proud of too is we do enjoy giving back in our community, and I think that's important. Once businesses become profitable, is to give back. We sponsor our local fair. We sponsor every golf tournament in town. At some level, I just was getting ready to sponsor the sheriff's department's benevolence fund golf tournament and different things like that. And that makes me feel good to be blessed enough and have the ability just to give back a little bit. It's a good feeling.
Good. Well, look, it has been an honor and a pleasure to have you on. You got a great story. It's nice to know that we've got folks in state government fighting for small business because just like you said, you understand what it's like out here. And that you also know what the opportunities are like. Now, the only opportunity you and I need to work on is trying to figure out how we can get a head of hair like Charlie. But that
So I will tell you this quickly. So we were at this chamber event today, and they were giving all the new taxes and the new regulations. And the guy said, and one of the things is they're even taxing your haircuts now. So there was another bald gentleman there, Telly Tucker. I don't know if you know Telly, but he's the director of Institute for Advanced Learning and Research in Danville. So when I got up and I said, well, I'm glad that I came here today to find out I'm exempt from at least one tax, and that's the haircut tax. Because Telly and I will be getting one, and Jim and I's exempt from it too. Sorry, Charlie, you're in trouble. You're going to be paying that haircut tax.
Happily so. It's funny. I have, I have had this hair for a long time, and I'm
I'm
sorry.
jealous. We're
I don't know
jealous. That's
how
the
to
only reason we bring it
apologize
up.
anymore for having hair, guys. I
Yeah, we're
promise.
jealous.
So as we close out, I'll just say one of my nicknames for him is the Silver Fox with all that hair.
I'm
Okay.
married. I got 3 kids. Those days are over with. Delegate, we appreciate you being on tonight and taking time to discuss this issue that is critically important to localities, to the Commonwealth, and to the nation generally. And it's something that gets overlooked. And I'm glad we finally had a Paul on here who was willing to take up the conversation. But you're in a unique position. You're one of us. You're a small business person who understands the problems, the challenges, and thankfully for you, the successes. And I just hope and pray that one day, soon, that people will realize that 95% of all jobs created in the United States are created by small business.
That's right.
Yep.
And that's why we're here, and we appreciate you coming on tonight.
Well, again, it's my honor and privilege to be here. Really enjoyed talking with you guys, and thank you for the invitation. And anytime I can ever do anything, or you got listen, the best ideas and the best legislation come from people who are out in the world doing stuff, and we can't know it all. So if you guys have any input or anything, anytime, man, send it my way. It'll make me look smart to carry a bill that you came up with that I didn't think of.
Well, thank you very much. And to our audience, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And as I always love to say, be good, be better, and be best.